Many people believe that vaccines, specifically the measles vaccine, causes autism. The reasoning for this is because parents will often say that their children were normal before they received the vaccine. Of course, we've also got fraudulent researchers like Andrew Wakefield, who published a paper back in 1998 on the link between the measles vaccine and autism spectrum disorder, which was published by The Lancet, not removed until about 12 years later, when it was discovered that he committed fraud when he wrote the paper. And of course, this was picked up by multiple media outlets and whatnot, and the general public ran with it for 12 years. But what actually happens is the measles vaccine is generally given to infants between 12 and 18 months. This is a period of time between birth and essentially 2 years old is considered the stage of trust versus mistrust, according to Eric Erickson. And what happens is, for many autistics, the ability to mask is a necessity. And we're able to do so until we reach burnout or meltdown or whatever, generally caused by a trauma. And for autistics, big T traumas and little t traumas are one and the same. There's no distinguishing between them. So something like yelling at somebody who's autistic, something like scaring them, something like giving them a very painful shot can be very traumatic. The parents who aren't autistic don't really see that. They don't really understand that. To them, a shot is a shot. And they don't really understand, because it's a vaccine. And there's common myth that vaccines cause autism. And the reason behind this, why there is a somewhat of a correlation. Remember, correlation does not equal causation. But there is a bit of a correlation between receiving the measles vaccine, or any vaccine essentially, in infancy and the manifestation of autistic traits. That's because the actual shot itself is considered a demand, a trauma. It hurts more than giving blood, because something's being injected into your body that isn't supposed to be there. It has a tendency to burn. It has a tendency to feel like you're being punched, essentially, when it's done, and even afterwards. And this can be very traumatic for an infant. And so, yes, their autistic traits will manifest earlier on. And that doesn't mean that the vaccine itself is causing the autistic traits. It simply means that prior to this event, the child did not undergo a traumatic experience to make their processing, their nervous system, and everything go into overdrive. And so they were completely normal, for lack of a better term, infant, but then once they received the actual injection, the actual trauma, it's not the measles vaccine itself, it's the trauma of getting a shot, that caused their nervous system to go into overdrive and cause their senses to go into overdrive and lead them to that mistrust side rather than the trust side. Their primary caregiver, the world, has hurt them, and they don't really know how to react to that. They're not grown to the point where they can develop coping skills and all that. So yes, the autistic traits will manifest and will be more present. Without that, they will eventually still manifest. It may just be later, once they reach that first traumatic experience. So that's why vaccines, why it typically seems like vaccines cause autism. It's not the vaccine itself, it's the trauma from the vaccine, the trauma from the shot. And they would manifest later on at the first trauma anyway.